All right, we got a nice even 50 people in here. I think that's a good sign. Can kick it off. Liquidity Wizard.
Just had to find my mute button again there. Hey everyone, both on the team and in the community. Glad to have everyone here. So this is the first State of the Reactor that we're going to be holding, something we're going to do more frequently, along with a number of other things, just so that we can have more communication and engagement with the community. I think often on these calls, End and others on the team will start aggregating sort of community questions, ideas, etc. in advance of these calls. But for this first one, we really wanted to kick off more with taking you a little bit behind the scenes on a couple things, including, importantly, sort of the roadmap and a bunch of new features that we will be rolling out shortly. So along those lines, some of the things you're going to hear today will probably be sort of classic Liquidity Wizard Carson chat, where I probably will go off the rails into some pretty deep stuff. So if I lose you, fear not. Later today, End is going to be pushing a Medium article that at least touches on each of these topics. And then there's going to be deeper dives on all of these things that we'll be doing on other calls, as well as dedicated articles as well. And I think it's worth mentioning that in the current market sentiment, not just internally to Tokemak, but across all of crypto and really global macro. I know we're in very uncertain times and not a fun market at the moment. But I'll say everyone on the team here, myself included, isn't going anywhere, and we'll build through any market. And I could not be more optimistic for the future, regardless of any short-term market situations that the space may be in, and any sort of price on things. So today we're going to start lifting the veil off of a lot of the stuff that we've been heads down building for a long time now, and we'll continue to be doing so at a pretty rapid clip from here on out. So End and everyone on the team, thanks for setting this up. And also, I think we'll take feedback from the community as we go in terms of like what you'd like the State of the Reactors going forward to include. But again, like I was saying, future ones, we'll plan to sort of get pulses sort of from the community and Discord, et cetera, and source some questions. So I think one of the first things I'd like to, one other actually administrative thing. So I think going forward as well, I think one of the things that maybe doesn't come through super strongly necessarily always in our community or Discord are our Rockstar team of developers who are busy working and often aren't able to be as plugged in on the Discord side. And so I think whether it's the next one or the following one too, and we've got a number of our great devs on stage here with me. But I think on one of the next couple too, we'll try to have one that's highlights the dev team behind Tokemak more, where we can go into sort of questions that are maybe a little bit deeper on the technical side, and where you can just get more plugged in with our development team. So, and any other things at the top of the call here, or should we dig into to roadmap?
No, I was just gonna, just reiterate that we're gonna have an article coming out shortly after this that has some of the high level highlights, and then probably within a week, I would say, maybe Carson, we could have kind of like a deeper dive on some of the things that you're going to talk about. But yeah.
Yep, exactly. So you're going to hear some new terminology here that soon is going to be sort of embedded into the Tokemak consciousness and community. But don't be concerned or frightened. We're going to make all this stuff a lot more accessible through future discussions and articles. Okay. So I think given that, let's sort of start. I'm going to kind of go a bit chronologically. And again, I think all of the topics that I hit on right now are going to be things that you're going to be able to see. Each of these things should be at least addressed in the article that End is going to be pushing out later tonight, it sounds like. So first and foremost, one that might not be addressed in the article, within the next 24 hours, there's, I won't say the name because I don't want to remove all surprise, but there's going to be a major sort of top 3, top 5, whatever exchange that's going to be listing Toka. So that should be coming here, I think, within the next 24 hours, if not 36 hours.
It was already announced, actually.
Oh, was it already announced? Yeah. All right. Well, they totally stole my thunder. So it's okay to say the name. It's already out there.
I got a message from somebody that is not internal that they were aware of it. So I'm assuming that
Okay.
public,
Cool.
but
Craig, from your perspective,
Fire
it's fine?
away. Yeah,
Okay,
that can
perfect.
be
Okay,
said.
so probably half of you maybe already know this, but we'll be on Huobi within the next 24 hours, I believe, or at least 36 hours, subject to any sort of last minute scheduling things on their end. But that's what they've indicated to us. So again, more access points globally for people to access Toka. So that's great. Now getting to the actual roadmap stuff here. So we are sitting sort of in the second half of Core 3, but I'll say we haven't even started the interesting part of Core 3. Obviously, there's millions of dollars in bribes already being entered or sort of teed up for entrance when needed. But if this is anything like the Core 1 and Core 2, Core 3 will probably have a crazy amount of activity sort of in the Sunday to Monday timeframes as we go up to, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a noon Eastern Pacific conclusion on Monday? Pacific. Okay, so noon Pacific Standard Time on Monday will be the conclusion, and I anticipate we'll have a lot of activity and probably bribe activity. So for those of you, whether you're project-based with your votes or you're economics-based with your votes, make sure you're paying attention to what's happening in Hidden Hand if you're looking on the economic side, or you're watching and placing your votes accordingly to the projects that you want to see reactors. Following completion of Core 3, we're going to be using sort of Core 3 momentum to go into a bunch of other things here that I'm about to discuss. So a bunch of things in the roadmap. Obviously, Core 3 Reactor spin up will be coming next. It's going to look somewhat similar to the past, but with a slightly, I'll call it lower requirement or focus on DAO-to-DAO token swaps. And the reason actually links into the other things that I'm about to sort of initially unveil on this call shortly involving tokenomics, because we have a better mousetrap in order to get the inventory we need. But nonetheless, the reactors will be spinning up. So we'll have the top 5 projects from Core 3, which then will get liquidity reactors, and we'll be sort of progressing through turning those on. One of the next things on the agenda here in the coming weeks is going to be evolving our governance. So we sort of started early with, I'll call it operational governance at sort of a, very much at the forefront within the Tokemak ecosystem. So liquidity directors being those that route and control liquidity in cyclical time on the within our protocol, as well as, of course, the core events telling us sort of which tokens you would like to see liquidity in going forward. It's time to now evolve that. We're ready to sort of push to the next steps towards sort of full decentralization. So we're going to be establishing forum and snapshot, sort of proper, I'll call it strategic protocol governance as well. So you can look forward to that with, again, more opportunities to do more things on the governance side with your Toka. And now I'm about to go into the more exotic updates, let's call them. So the next big sort of push is, and all of this is actually focused on the evolved tokenomics, which we have been long planning. We always knew that the early stage was going to be a stepping stone to sort of this next stage or phase. And central to this are 2 sort of new concepts. So the first thing that we intend to launch, or that currently on our roadmap we think comes first, is going to be something we're calling ACC Toka. So lowercase ACC Toka. This is effectively a vote locking mechanism. So think VL, a la VL CVX, a vote locking mechanism that we are going to open for Toka, where now users and protocols are able to lock up their Toka for longer periods of time in order to get a number of benefits, including juiced governance. So a few of these things, anyone on the team is welcome to chime in with additional ones that I might miss here, but a few of them that we will be unveiling is effectively the concept of shared, the increased yield via a share or a portion of protocol revenue. So I think on our last weekly snapshot, even with sort of the current depressed markets where anything we're yielding is, of course, in lower dollar value. I think we were brought in around $750,000 USDC worth of tokens. And with this new ACC toka possibility, if you choose to lock up your toka, you will get an increased yield by receiving a portion of the revenue that flows into our protocol. That internally is also going to create more demand, more market pressure basically on toka, because that revenue is going to be used to first buy toka in order to then distribute toka that the protocol acquires on the market out to the locked token holders, these ACC toka holders. Several other things here, and again, I'm just going to give you just skim the surface on all this stuff. ACC toka is planned to have increased liquidity control. So those that hold this locked form of toka will get stronger control over liquidity direction. This, of course, can be very important for different token projects, different stablecoin providers, exchanges, large holders, and people sort of entrenched in the ecosystem that want and care about a lot of control of liquidity within the ecosystem to direct it wherever they need. So they will likely sort of lock up tokens into this ACC token model. Other couple of things include boosted voting power. So for Core 4, which we are planning to do, unlike Core 1, Core 2, where we wanted to make sure, one, that we got the actual liquidity deployments going, and sort of we're on the back end building a ton of stuff, and our devs have been very, very busy on the back end doing a lot of things that, again, on one of the future calls, I want to detail all the things they've been working on. We wanted to make sure that here we have Core 3 and we use the momentum more rapidly to get to Core 4. Core 4 we plan to launch shortly after we unleash this locking mechanism, so that ACC toka holders are able to get sort of more voting power in Core 4, which again will drive more demand to lock toka into this model. Let's see. The last one that I'll at least cover here, and there's a few other things, but last one I'll cover for now is additional governance in general. So there's a number of new governance features that ACC toka will unlock. One of them is that post-core, we are planning to move to a model where anyone can sort of propose a new reactor, a new liquidity reactor for a project, and subject to sufficient toka votes, or in this case, ACC toka votes, they will then be able to ignite that reactor. So ACC toka will actually be a requirement in order to vote on approval of new reactors once we again go through the line of core events, which we're planning to do Core 3 and Core 4 at this time before we move to this more evolved model. So that's I'm throwing a lot at you, but that's, I think, what's probably worth covering for now on the ACC toka side. And by the way, the name of that will probably become sooner shortly. So as mentioned, after ACC toka launches, we'll be doing Core 4 with the opportunity for the community and protocols to get boosted vote power in Core 4 using ACC toka. Next, in this one, if you were a little bit lost on the last one, you might get a little more lost here. But again, fear not. There's going to be the article tonight and deep dive articles on this. So the next thing is we are really focused on growing the PCV, the protocol controlled value on within Tokemak. So much so that we have a number of metrics that we're going to be rolling out and focused on that are very much focused on kind of the next what I would call evolution of metrics or fundamentals that people should care about within DeFi. So rather than being focused on TVL, which the space at the moment is hyper focused on, total value locked, which if you think about it is basically how much debt financing a protocol can bring in. We instead want to be focused on PCV, so protocol controlled value, really the portfolio of PCA or protocol controlled assets, which just means has both the number of PCV, how much is it worth, plus the actual portfolio makeup or diversification therein. The mechanism by which we will dramatically increase PCV is through the launch of a new token that is effectively, I'll call it a cash flow token. This token, by the way, is not to in any way compete with Toka. It doesn't drive any of the demand away from that. In fact, much to the opposite, it drives massive value back to Toka, and you're going to see this soon. But ACC effectively is a way where anyone can give us any supported asset on Tokemak at any point in time. It goes directly into our PCV, so we have no T asset liability like we do with liquidity providers and TVL. And instead, we mint, so there's no sort of max supply to this. As we bring in effectively, call it revenue in quotes, as people hand us SNX or ALCX or Frax or FE, we mint PCV and hand them back, or sorry, we mint ACC and hand them back this token. So what exactly is ACC and why do people want it? So ACC is effectively a token that is the cash flow component of what I was saying the vote locked Toka or ACC Toka gives you without the underlying sort of Toka mapping. So when you hold this token, you get a portion of the revenues that the Tokemak protocol is generating, and those revenues that are distributed, again, are used to market buy Toka with whatever the underlying was that was generated within our protocol. And again, for those of you that might not be paying attention to this side, right now we're generating, this is kind of ballpark, and of course the market correcting lately can vary this quite a bit, but call it 4 to 6 million in revenue per month right now at the protocol level. So this asset, the mechanism people can get this is at any point in time, all of our balancing equations that right now balance liquidity providers with liquidity directors are about to get a additional dimension that balances not only the TVL provided by liquidity providers with the Toka votes for the liquidity directors, but also inflows of assets via people that are willing to hand Tokemak additional PCV in exchange for this ACC token. And in a minute, I'm going to explain why the ACC here. People will be interested in do this because there will be a secondary market for it. So while we won't ever redeem it back for their original tokens, we will be using our governance power elsewhere. A number of you probably know what I mean by that, in order to stand up a secondary market for this. So if you think about it, for any of you that are deep on the Curve and Convex ecosystem, this is somewhat analogous, albeit with some differences, but somewhat analogous to how Convex has been able to scoop up massive amounts of the CRV token in exchange for CVX CRV. That's sort of conceptually what we're going to be doing, but now we're going to be doing it with every supported asset within Tokemak is going to be expanding dramatically as we open up the ability to vote on new reactors. So now all of a sudden we can bring in any asset, mint and issue ACC, much like on Convex, CRV comes in exchange for the minting and issuance of CVX CRV. So if you think about what sort of leverage and network or scale effects that can unlock, it's quite massive if you think about how that happens. And we're going to get similar sort of leverage effects running on the back end. It's too deep for this call, but on the back end, a la sort of what Convex has done. So I think, let me just see if there's anything. Let me pause for a second and see if anyone on my team, especially on the ACC one, has anything to say on that I missed at a high level prior to me sort of going through the singularity and why it's called ACC.
No, you covered everything, Carson. And I would just like to emphasize that besides the revenue share, which obviously is crucial for the vote lock version of Toke, it's interesting to think about the bribing markets that will arise with the new governance power that is associated to it. So these bribing markets are something that is not present on this core event, but going forward, it's going to be a dynamic that I'm really looking forward to see playing out.
Yep, completely agree. Did someone else have one? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add just a quick note. I just was looking at some of the chats. There were some questions as to just into more detail. So I just wanted to add there's definitely there's of course more detail to this, how the logic, there's a logic behind how, for example, these ACC tokens, which ones the system deems currently of higher value these kind of things. I don't think we're going to go into this like during this kind of call, because otherwise like everyone's going to get turbo confused. We're definitely going to cover these then in this more detailed article that we're like working on with End. And then we hope to like get out the door like next week.
Yep. And 2 or 3.
I guess that's,
oh, go ahead.
I guess that we can provide the quick TLDR, which is that we can model the demand through a bonus within this new token. So obviously, depending on the utility that the new token that we are absorbing to the PCV brings to the system, we will price it differently.
Yep, exactly right. And I was actually going to just layer on a couple of things, one of which kind of hits on that. So first is a beautiful part about this is that we actually, this whole sort of new mousetrap, and it's a lot bigger than just a mousetrap, but is can be done without really increasing emissions or inflation. So we're all focused on actually, disinflating things, reducing emissions, but doing that in a way where we need TVL, there's still an attractive APR in the system, but do it in a sustainable way. And to what was just sort of mentioned, the way the equations work is they reassign bonuses. So if we have too much TVL, then can be safely deployed in one reactor, we actually take the amount that can't be deployed and the rewards associated with it for that cycle, reallocate those as sort of a minting bonus to those that come in, hand us that asset, say ABC, but to our PCV or our PCA, and instead mint and receive ACC, they will get basically that bonus. So it's actually a reassignment and a much more clever and intelligent use of rewards and emissions for exactly what the protocol needs. And the net result of sort of all of this, and again, I'm sure everyone, like half the people on the call are completely confused probably right now, and half of them are half confused. But again, we're going to be going through a lot more detail, but I want to at least introduce these things. So apologies that it's probably a little overwhelming initially. But the kind of goal of this is it's a shift in mindset to it still exactly remains with what we've always been planning, which is Tokemak is a liquidity machine. It's basically provides the liquidity bandwidth of Web3. But it's a little bit of an inversion of the way that probably people have been thinking about this when they first think of, people put in TVL and we deploy that. Now it becomes the game of massively expand the PCV, and we're going to be introducing I think eventually, or metrics that will be eventually become very important in all of DeFi. So for example, the PCV to TVL ratio, it now becomes how do you grow that? And then how do you effectively deploy the PCV as liquidity bandwidth, which as much TVL as we can safely and effectively deploy across DeFi. So it just becomes a slight sort of difference in how we think about this. And again, PCV, if you take nothing away from this, just know that PCV is good because the protocol owns it outright, unlike TVL where we have to give it back to depositors. And more PCV means there's more backing every token, and therefore is a bigger balance sheet for token holders, which can generate more revenue and profits. Again, for indirectly maybe at first, but for token holders. Okay, so I want to move on just because in 4 minutes I will have to jump onto another call, and I want to hit a couple more things. So next is all of this is going towards is really an acceleration. The concept that we talked about very early on about Tokemak becoming a self-sustaining liquidity machine that powers DeFi and Web3. So the question is like, why did we call it ACC, right? We have this new ACC token that people get when they provide PCV into protocol controlled assets into Tokemak. And then we have ACC token when you lock your token up. And the reason is that all of this is basically to accelerate us towards the singularity or an acceleration. But it goes further than that. There's actually sort of a trio of words that we really, for why we really liked ACC as we use this as the mechanism to get towards the singularity. So for any of you physics nerds in the crowd, accretion is basically the process of growth or increase, accumulation of additional layers of matter. And there's the concept with stellar objects, and in particular here, black holes, called an accretion disk, which is basically a structure of materials that's orbiting around a black hole, kind of forever approaching the singularity. In some cases, not forever, but approaching the singularity. And so ACC means accretion, ACC means acceleration, and ACC means accumulation. And that's really, we wanted these sort of action words to describe it, because all of this will support and reinforce Tokemak and the Toka token. And really a call that's going to be incredibly powerful. So I think with that, that's sort of it on what I'll call tokenomic side of things. There is one more thing I want to briefly hit on. Well, it looks like we do have Paul on. Paul, do you want to give? I'll actually just do a cliff notes, but Internet Paul and a number of people. Yeah, there you go. Internet Paul and a number of people on the team have been hard on work on the project codename Exaverse with the pilots, and I would say. I'll hand it over to him for a minute here, but they're doing some really innovative things, making sure that this isn't just sort of a copy-paste project, that it's really, really innovative, and that it also supports the core mission of Tokemak and liquidity bandwidth as well in a unique way. So, Paul, anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, just, we had a lot of requests to do NFTs, and I think part of our company culture is when we do something, we don't want to just do the status quo. So we've been trying to figure out and have succeeded in figuring out how to make an entrance into this market in a meaningful way that actually maps back to Tokemak. So there's two things to know about the project that are the most important. One of which is that the tokenomics are going to be tied to Tokemak in a way that is directly beneficial and sort of building towards that singularity event. And so we really don't want to say too much until we get to a point where we're comfortable sort of quickly launching after revealing what we've been doing. But suffice to say that it is different than any other sort of GameFi or NFT related project that you might see. It is a game. It will be playable. And there's sort of a more traditional game, something you might associate with GameFi now. And there's a sort of fully unique element that we uncovered in our process of trying to figure out what to do that I think is really interesting. And we're not aware of anyone else who is currently doing it. So I can't wait to reveal it, but I've been trying my best not to say too much so that we can be first to market with this idea.
Yeah. And I'll just reiterate, Paul and team have some really, really innovative things happening there. So a lot to be excited about, but I would agree with Paul. We want to unveil it at the right moment. So it's definitely not a copy-paste project in any way. And again, it's going to support core Tokemak mission and others as well. So,
well, maybe one more thing that we could say is, what part of the reason that we were able to land where we landed is that we've watched as other successful NFTs that sort of have from left field had a lot of success. They're now backing into sort of monetization models from already having a community and being well known. They're trying to figure out how to go back and give the thing a soul. Whereas we are going to be growing both the community, the value of the NFTs, as well as what I would call a basis of monetizable, I guess we'll just say assets, all at the same time from the bottom up.
Yep. Well said. And I hate to do it, but I will have to jump here because I'm late to another call. I think some of the other people on the team may be able to stay another minute or two, but just to wrap up on my side before I jump, you're going to be hearing a lot more from me and the team going forward. We have a ton of stuff that we're building. Bear markets are great for builders, and this team is completely full of builders. So rest assured, we're doing a ton of stuff, and you're going to be hearing a lot from us on that side. And going forward, too, I want to be able to be plugged in on questions, too. So on the next one, we'll make sure that I don't have an immediate call after where we can't do some questions and where I spend the whole time talking as opposed to taking questions and listening. So thank you all for jumping in on a week when the markets are rough and everything. Hang in there, and a lot more to come. And again, I think the team can stay for a minute if there were any questions that En's trying to field. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. And I just want to reiterate what Carson just said, which is that, as I said yesterday in the captain's announcement, we're going to try to do this once a month in kind of a structured way where we gather some questions from the captains and we can have kind of a more focused conversation about the significant topics that people want answers to, and also include more people, as like Carson said in the beginning of the call, like the devs, and continue to familiarize yourselves with the team, because they're an incredible dev team, and I know they're not like on crypto Twitter and kind of a big name, but they're an incredible team, and I think they deserve more spotlight. And then the last thing I'll say about the Exaverse thing is, there's two things. I don't want people to think that we're just trying to jump into this NFT world just because NFTs have blown up. I think everybody probably kind of knows I'm like a pretty big NFT degen guy, but if you recall from the inception of creating our sort of mascot of Tokemak, which is the Tokemaks, we started working with crypto native artists right away, and we think it's an incredibly important part of the community, and want to try to strengthen that community identity. So that's kind of part of the incentive to breathe life into the Leaky Reactor and dive deeper into this world. So there's that, and then also we should also reiterate, or at least communicate, that like the Exaverse project is like a side project. It's not taking away any of the core devs on Tokemak's time. We have two other separate devs that are helping us with this thing, and we will surely reveal more when we're able to. But this is the project where Degenesis participants will be able to get the pilot NFTs that we've been talking about for so long. So we don't have an exact timeline on the launch, but we're getting closer and closer, and we have some really cool ideas. So we're excited to share that with everybody.
Yeah, and maybe it's just good to note that there is like a more formally written out piece of the Medium article that you're putting out, Connor, that is specifically focused on Exaverse. It does have more information. I was just having a bit of a hard time speaking to it without sort of revealing what we're hoping to keep under wraps for just a few more weeks before we try to unveil it.
Got it.
There's more information than I was able to get out on the call. That'll be in that article that you're interested, you can review.
Okay, cool. All right. Anybody else before we wrap this up? I know we're over a little bit, but we're excited to have these more often, and we love all of you. And thanks for sticking with us. So, anybody else want to say hi or bye?
Bye.
Yeah, I have just a quick update for next week, and I think that it's safe to say that we are going to enter the curve economy. So we are going to submit for governance discussion a proposal for a Tokeeth pool, and hopefully we will submit shortly after the on-chain vote. And we have already enough CVX to properly incentivize liquidity within Curve V2. And this is a step forward to also make Tokemak's liquidity more sustainable. And eventually we will also add the Tokefrax pool.
I might have just
the reasoning.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's
I was just going to mention that this is also part of the reasoning behind the unwinding of the Uniswap pool, and part of the convex and curve strategy all converges to this. And Tokemak will also be one of the largest holders of CVX CRV, and this is going to prove to be very, very important for the future sustainability of the protocol.
Okay,
Anything
final
to add here, guys?
Nope. Final thought is that I have been working very hard on what, again, I think is an innovative approach to this time, pretty superfluous, but merchandise. We built a achievement site that will allow for you to unlock patches that go on the sweatshirts. So each sweatshirt has a patch receiver, like Velcro pad, which is sort of styled like the military, which you'll be able to, via your on-chain behavior, unlock achievement patches in order to customize your hoodie. So keep a lookout for that. It's, again, I think it's a first. I'm not aware of anyone else doing sort of IRL unlockable things based on on-chain behavior.
All right, sweet. Thanks, everybody. for joining us. Thank you to the team for getting up here, and we're looking forward to doing this more often. So thanks, everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.